What is reality? Does anybody know? Well, we'll find out today that people have a hard time understanding what reality is. Okay, so here it is. This is the state of, you can say, the state of mind of people today. A lot of people today, especially of the 21st century, this is the state of mind, okay? I've illustrated there. People have nonsense on their brains, and they believe a lot of this nonsense. You have the flat earthers, people who believe in ghosts and so on. And these are the intelligent ones. I mean, these are the more rational ones, because you have the irrational people who believe that gravity is the warping of number lines and that light is mediated by vectors, and so on. So I think the flat earthers are a little more rational than the establishment. Okay, that's my personal opinion. You have people who drug themselves, and then you have a lot of people playing games today, people who believe that the ETs visited us and so on. We have a lot of people with nonsense on their brains, okay? And I think this is a big problem when you try to get rationality across to them. They're already in a different world. They need what is it? Graviton to get back on Earth. They're flying high, and they have all these birdies in their head. So when you try to talk sense into them, they don't understand. Okay, and so here's a summary or a synthesis. Okay, they don't care for science anymore. That people care for entertainment. They want to be entertained. So they have all these clowns, I call them, and I'm not insulting them, okay? When I call them clowns, I mean clowns. I mean, these are stand-up comedians. They are slapstick, people like Charlie Chaplin and Buster Keaton. They're out there just trying to entertain people. It's a circus, and people are no longer paying attention to science, the real down-to-earth science. They tell them whatever they want, that you can time travel to the past, and they believe it all. They accept it. Why? Because they're being bombarded daily by all the stuff that comes out of Hollywood and TV and the internet. Okay, so the worldly wisdom, no such thing as reality. That's what people have in their mind. There's no reality, and they lost track of what reality is, as though they have their feet way off the ground. We live in a world of fantasy. We have all these video games and so on, bombarding people every day, and I think that does have an effect eventually on people's mind, especially on the people who were born in this century. By the time they kind of open their eyes a little bit, they've been bombarded so much that they don't know what reality is anymore. Okay, Hollywood influence, tremendous amount of influence. Not only that, the internet as well. People expect to see flashy visual effects. So they come to these channels, and a lot of them get bored because they say, look, Bill, I don't want to listen to you. I want to see some flashy stuff. Well, I'm sorry. Science is, take chalk, write on the board, and learn, and oh, how boring. Yeah, studying is boring. I'm sorry. No, they want to see flashy scenes, strange things, okay? And it's really math phys that has destroyed, mathematical physics that's destroyed science, because these people give you all this nonsense about black holes, that you can fall into a black hole, that you can travel to other universes through a wormhole. They give you all this nonsense, and people hear this every day. Oh, we got the biggest black hole, the farthest black hole, the smallest black hole, the closest black hole. And they go through all this nonsense. Is that physics? Is that science? What is this? Competition, who gets the biggest black hole, the smallest black hole, the farthest one, the closest one? All nonsense, absolute poppycock. And so people are bombarded with all that, and they start yawning and say, well, I don't want to hear that anymore. I don't want to read about it for sure. They want to see the flashy scenes when a guy falls into a black hole. Now that might interest them, but learning about black holes, there's really nothing to learn. Okay, it's just a big mass. That's all they're saying. For some reason, it has some effect on matter, and they've never explained the physical mechanism. And so people get bored and they run away from these so-called scientists. Okay, they don't want to hear them anymore. And the important thing is dissidents are in the same book. Okay, why? Because they use the same language as the mathematicians. They came out of high school and they learned the word force, field, mass, energy, time, and they use those same words to make their physical interpretation. They don't realize that you can't use those words in physics. Okay, so whoever uses those words is not doing physics, it's doing mathematics. because they're trying to explain a mechanism using concepts as mediators. That's the problem, okay? And that's what these dissidents are doing. Okay, and again, they're using a lot of video games, they're high in drugs. You know, who knows, a lot of people drug themselves out there. I never used drugs in my life, so I can't tell you. There it is. That's what we see of all these people. This is my impression of a lot of people out there. They really don't, they're not on Earth anymore. You know, they're really flying high. And there you have some of the things that on the right that people would like to watch. And I've showed some of this in the past. Here you see spaghettification, this guy falling into a black hole, losing his head. Okay. Yeah, so, you know, this is what people want to see. Okay. These are the flashy scenes. You know, they say, oh, that's cool. You know, I can see this guy falling in there. And so when you try to talk to them about science, you know, they really have a problem with that. Here's another one, traveling to the past. You have all these folks out there. Let me put it up here. You have all these people out there who put videos on time travel. Okay, and you say, I mean, is this real? Is this science? And look at all the videos. And these are high-paid people who represent the establishment. You can, I'm sure, identify a few of them there. You know, but they all talk about the same thing. And look at all the hits they have. They have millions of hits. So when people watch, they think they're looking at science or listening to science. They say, oh, I'm going to get my science shot for the week. And this is what they watch. They watch these people, you know, do all this kind of stuff. And that's what's incredible, you know, about what the state of science, you could say, of today. People think that this is science. You've got all these videos out there, and this takes up a lot of, you know, what it does is takes up a lot of, you know, it dilutes the message, because you have all these people talking about nonsense that isn't real. And then you have here the ETs, you know, their superpowers. You know, how many times we've seen videos about this. Here you have one video, okay? The Martians coming to visit us, okay? And they fly around our cities, okay? And this is what people want to see. They want to see a movie that excites them, and they think this is science. They say, well, this is, if we can make it like that, it must be true. We can really, you know, make it in real life. If we can imagine it, we can make it real. Okay, so this is part of our reality. Here's another one. Let me show you this. This is telekinesis, and here you see it. You know, people who can move things around with their minds, and a lot of people believe this stuff. And they see it on TV, and they say, oh man, I wish I had that power. Yeah, one thing is to dream, another one is to say that this is real. You know, and so you know, it's when people mistake this for reality, and they have all these ideas in their heads that all this is possible. In fact, I asked several people out there, common folk, and they said that anything that we can imagine, we can make it real. Okay, here you have another group that I talked about last week. The fact that a lot of people think that science is about art and beauty, and just pointing out to that piece there, it says it may not be the duty of science to enchant our conceptual landscape. Yeah, that's what they do. They're enchanting you. They're showing you something through the eyes and ears, and they're just delighting you. They're entertaining you, but they're not giving you any science. Is this science? Is this reality? You know, and says that is one of the goals of science. Could be one of the goals of science that can achieve. No, this is not one of the goals of science for sure. I mean, it's something that is not part of science. Science is just explanation, and let's keep that there. Then you have others like, you know, the zombies and Draculas. Here's a couple pieces that I pulled out of there. You know, movies that people watch, and that they get, I guess they get nightmares from this, or they're shot in the arm for the week with all this stuff, and they believe all this stuff is probably true. A lot of them have been brainwashed by all this stuff since they were children, and they actually believe this, so that, you know, that maybe there are Draculas out there, or you know, zombies or whatever. And so, yeah, this is something that you got to keep in mind, the kind of influences that people have out there. And so it's very hard to give a scientific presentation when all these people have all this junk in their mind that's preventing them from, keeping an open mind especially to new ideas. Okay, so here's a note that triggered my subject matter today, and it was a headline that came out there. Says, Jon Stewart argues Trump verdict response shows media has decided that there is really what? No such thing as reality. Really no such thing as reality. And yeah, that's the conclusion a lot of people have out there, that there is no such thing as reality. Nothing is real. Here's a comment by someone about existence that someone put in our science group there, and he says, reality doesn't have man-made rules or paradoxes. Things like the light paradox is nonsense. Okay, how can an object, particle, also be a concept, wave? Yeah, we have the wave packet. It's a packet, it's a wave. It's unimaginable. You cannot imagine the particle at the same time as the wave. So what they've done over the years is say, well, the particle itself, if you look at it deep enough, it's a wave. In fact, that's what string theory is all about, essentially, because they're saying, look, it's a wave, it's a little closed loop thread, and it vibrates, and it does that little thingy there, and that's a particle. So they turn the particle into a wave, and the particle and the wave into a particle, because they're trying to cover both worlds, the wave and particle world, and that's how string theory came about. They said, hey, they're looking for a wave, and we have the particle. That's already a done deal with quantum mechanics. They're looking for a wave, no problem. We'll say that it's a little string there that's vibrating. Okay, one-dimensional string, by the way. And so he says you can't. There are not any dualities or paradoxes in nature, just misunderstandings of men. Absolutely, totally agree with him. And so here's the rundown for that. His answer: their reality is not equal observer or observation. Reality has nothing to do with what you perceive. Okay, reality refers to what's outside of you, not what's inside of you, especially inside your head. In science, we define reality, okay? And there you have definition, physical presence, object plus location. Synonyms, what? Real, reality, actual. So reality is one of those synonyms of exist, and we'll find out that the establishment also has more or less the same idea, that reality is equal to exist, or has something to do with the real and with existence. Definition of reality has no provisions for observers, experiments, or proof, okay? So that means that you can't say, I believe that this chair is here. You cannot say that you believe. That's an irrational statement. The chair is here, whether you believe or not. And if it ain't here, whether you believe or not that it's here, it doesn't matter either. Okay? Reality is what Mother Nature knows, especially what happened. If something happens, she's got that in her file cabinet out there. We have no access to that file cabinet. All we can do is make assumptions and propose explanations, but that is history, and only Mother Nature is the only guardian of history. She knows exactly what happened. We don't. We can only speculate. Humans have explanations and opinions, and explanations belong to science, opinions to religion. Okay? Explanation science, and opinions religion. There you have it. Okay, so keep these things in mind. These are the rules, at least, that we follow in this channel. Okay, so here we have a few fellows from the establishment. Okay, so we're going to hear from the horse's mouth, right? And this fellow I talked about in the past, his name is O'Dowd, and he works for PBS, has a program called Spacetime, and this is what he has to say about reality. I mean, he's a physicist, or so he calls himself. He's a mathematical physicist, which are not physicists, but he thinks of himself as a physicist. This is what physicists, physics can only be done with objects. You need to have a physical object. And these people say, maybe you don't. Okay, so listen to him, okay? Here it is, listen carefully.
The fundamental nature of reality may not be physical at all. The fundamental nature of reality may not be physical at all. The fundamental nature of reality may not be physical at all.
Okay, so he says that we don't need physical things for reality. And so we wipe all the things from the universe. What is the reality? Nothingness, I guess. That's the reality. Yeah, he says we don't need things. And he's not the only one who says that. We have all these other head honchos. Talked about Sean Carroll as well. And he also believes that so far we've been doing, mathematical physics has been doing it with concepts, everything with concepts. So they believe that, that reality is just waves and particles in general. But this fellow proposes something else. He proposes the universal wave function. Here it is. Listen to him.
That is not a good question to ask. The embarrassing truth is we don't know the answer to that question yet. We only have our best guesses at the current moment. My best guess is that the universe is a quantum mechanical wave function, and that is all that exists. There is just a quantum mechanical wave function. And someone's going to want to say, a wave function of what? And the only honest answer is I don't know. There's no extra explanatory level that says, well, why is there a wave function? It's one wave function for all the different parts of what we call the multiverse. Of course, again, the footnote for every single question here is we don't know for sure. We can't demand an answer to that question. We physicists would like to find a simpler, more beautiful underlying pattern that explains the sort of messiness of the pattern that we do observe.
So the answer is we don't know. And that's mathematical physics answer. So here we are 10,000 years since we've started all this stuff, and no one can tell you what's out there. And that was the job of physicists, because a physicist has to, physics is the science of existence. That's what physics is about. A physicist, his only function is to tell you what exists out there. And you say, well, I know the table exists, the chair exists, I can see them, touch them. Yeah, it's the invisible and intangible stuff where we need help. We don't need help in the invisible, tangible stuff. We need it in the invisible, intangible stuff. That's what the job of a physicist has been. They have to discover what's out there that we cannot see or touch. And in order to do that, you don't need math. You just need to make assumptions about what physical object is out there, and then use that to prop up your theory. You base your theory on those assumptions. Now that's the way it should work. Why hasn't it worked that way? Why can't they tell us anything about gravity or what mediates light or what mediates magnetism? They can't tell you because they don't use objects. They're trying to describe it with mathematics. They're describing essentially what's happening to the visible objects. And they say whatever's in there, we'll call it a field or a mass or energy or whatever word they could call it X, Y, Z. So we have the X that attracts here and the Y that pushes out there. Yeah, but what is X? What is Y? That's what we need to know. And they said, well, we'll never figure it out. Or some people say, we need to run more experiments, or maybe someone in the future will figure it out. And meanwhile, based on those concepts, they came up with black holes, dark matter, dark energy, Big Bang, and all the other nonsense, wormholes and other universes. They came up with all this nonsense. Why? Because they did math. They never did physics. They never used physical objects, or as Matt O'Dowd said, maybe it ain't physical. Yeah, if you talk about a concept such as field, you cannot say it's physical. Field is a concept. And so you can't say the field does this, and the field brought two magnets together, because field is not a physical object that you can use as a mediator. And so this is where the problem is. These people need to put objects, and they never understood that in the last 10,000 years. Not the Greeks, not the Middle Ages, not the people in the 17th century, so-called scientific revolution. No one in the 19th century, not Maxwell, not Faraday. No one in the 20th century, none of the people who invented quantum mechanics, general relativity, or string theory. None of them figured it out. Here you have another fellow, and he suggests, it's important what he suggests in the alternative, okay? And listen to him. He's also, he doesn't know. He also says that it's particles and fields, but that's the reality out there because it all comes down to that. That's what underlies it all. That's what they say. But, again, they cannot explain many things because they're stuck to particles and fields. But he's suggesting something else. He's saying maybe we need to change something. Okay, listen to him. Here goes.
The fundamental architecture of the world includes at least one other thing, namely fields. So I would say at the moment we're hoping we can get along with an ontology of particles and fields, but exactly what it is to be a fundamental physical entity is itself an open question. The world was made of these things which are sometimes particles and sometimes waves. None of that was terribly helpful. None of that was terribly clear. If somebody says, please tell me straightforwardly what there is, which are the questions I take physics to be in the business of answering. In order to fully understand what's going on with quantum mechanics, we're going to have to replace those categories by something altogether different. It's fair to say that at the moment, there aren't on the table any serious alternatives to or attempts to go deeper than quantum mechanics.
Well, at least Dave Albert, that's his name, he's saying, look, mathematical physics has come up with particles and fields. That's the reality out there. That's what exists. But we have a problem with that because with that we only have irrational explanations. Or the mathematician will say they don't understand their own theory. So here they are, they've proven it, but they don't understand it. Great, that's a big contradiction there. But Albert at least is saying, look, maybe we need to change all of this. Something we're missing. What they're missing is this. They're missing the rope. It's not a wave. It's not a particle. It's a rope. Okay? It's an extended object between two atoms, as Richard Miller from Berkeley said. You need to have something that mediates two atoms because every atom on Earth is pulling on every atom of you. And so unless you put an elongated physical object that we cannot see or touch, then you won't be able to pull. Okay? Pull can only be done with extended objects. Okay? Can't do it with particles or waves. Waves are one way. Can't pull if the wave goes. The wave has to somehow go and come back at the same time. It's got to be simultaneously, it's got to be bidirectional. A rope. Okay? Okay, so here we have all these people, and the question was posed to them, what is existence? And they all pretty much said the same thing as Sean Carroll and Dave Albert. And, they talk about fields, they talk about the universal wave function, talk about nonsense, they talk about concepts. And they say that's reality. Why? Because that's what mathematical physics has come up with after so many years of research and studying the problem. In other words, they haven't figured it out. And they never will because mathematicians are not qualified to do the kind of work that the question is asking. The question is saying, what is out there? What is a thing? And they're saying, let me give you the equation. I don't want your stupid equation. I want to know what's out there. I want to know what physical object is out there. And that they can't tell you because they're not experts on objects. They never define the word object, even though physics cannot be done without objects. And so we have this contradiction. We got the wrong people working on the problem. And we've had the wrong people for the last 400 years since the scientific revolution, so-called scientific revolution. Okay, they asked the same question to some so-called philosophers, non-physicists. Some are philosophers, neurosurgeons, whatever. And you can see everybody just says nonsense. They say what is reality? And they go in there and they discuss for hours and they never reach an answer to the question. They never answer the question. They just say, look, reality doesn't exist. Essentially, that's what they're saying. Or reality depends on you. Whatever is real to you, that's what that's what reality is. So they're saying it's an opinion. Because your reality, if you're on drugs, for example, or you watch the wrong program, as I mentioned earlier, then that's your reality. And that reality is different than my reality. So there is no objective reality out there? Yes, there is. Hopefully every atom in the universe has location. Whether you believe it or not, it doesn't matter. There are atoms everywhere in the universe. Everyone has a given location, and nothing's going to change that. The fact that you think, believe, opinion otherwise doesn't change that. Okay, every atom in the universe has location. Okay, so what do we have? We have this fellow. He says such theories became popular after COVID, and I'm saying no. These theories have been around for a long time. This is not new. We haven't changed anything in the last 400 years. The problem here is, again, they're using math instead of identifying the invisible, intangible objects that do the mediation of gravity, of magnetism, and whatever action occurs between atoms, energy, or whatever they want to call it. Okay, so that's what we needed to figure out. And so this fellow says maybe all this is the result of COVID. No, this has been around for a long time. So where did all these people fail? Well, all these people fail because they never defined reality, the word reality. What is reality? Only when we define it can we talk about it. But these people never define the word in a scientific way, and they immediately go out there and start talking about reality and analyzing it. First tell me what reality is, then we can probably talk intelligently, okay? And that's where the problem starts. So here's the definition you find out there. This is from dictionary.com. The one on the bottom is from Wikipedia. It says the state of quality or being real. Okay, great. That's great. Reality is real. Resemblance to what is real. A real thing or fact. Okay, they think it's a fact. Real things, facts, are events taken as a whole, state of affairs, etc. Okay, and in philosophy, something that exists independently of ideas concerning it. In other words, objective reality out there, I guess. Something that exists independently of all other things and from which all other things derive. So we got to look up the word real and the word exist to find out what we mean by reality, and there you have it. They say real is what's true. Great. And it says existing or occurring as fact. No, reality has nothing to do with fact in the sense that, fact is only what Mother Nature knows, not what we know. So we cannot say that this chair is a fact because, you might be on drugs, you might be flying high, and for you it's not a fact. For me it is, for you it ain't, And so fact is not the right word to use to define real or reality. And exist, what is it? To have actual being. What is that to be? And when you look at being, again, it's like, what was it? I think, therefore I am, that Descartes said. Again, people relate it to consciousness. That's the problem we have. So, no, they don't have a definition for reality. And then you see the Wikipedia definition, the sum or aggregate of all that is real or existent within the universe. Whatever that means, because when you look at real or existent, you go back to square one. These are circular definitions because they never defined exist or real. And so this is where we're at today. We don't have a definition, and all these people are talking in circles because they didn't start with a definition. In science, the first thing we do, part of the hypothesis as we call it, we define our terms. You have to define the key term that you're going to be debating. Why have the atheists, agnostics, and theists run around in circles forever? Because they never define the word exist. Nobody knows what they're saying when they say, I believe that God exists. And you say, oh, but I know that God doesn't. Unless you define the word exist, you're talking in circles. And that's what all these so-called apologists, for atheism and theism and agnosticism, that's what they do. They never define the word exist or real or reality. That's where we're at. So how do we do it here? Well, we do it the scientific way. Here it is, okay? Physics is the science of existence. It's a monopoly over existence. Anyone using the word exist in any way, shape, or form, meaning real, reality, actuality, whatever, has crossed the line into physics, okay? If he wants to talk rationally. Otherwise, he can stay in, ordinary speech and mathematical physics. But if you're going to talk rationally, you got to come into science, okay? Into physics, real physics. When you use the word exist, when you talk about something existing, okay? And what do? We hypothesize. We say, let us assume. That's the way we do it in science. Let us assume that this table exists. You say, well, hold it. The table does exist. What do you mean? I can touch it. I can see it. Maybe that's not the definition of exist. Does God exist? Let us assume that God exists. And he said, oh, but I believe in science exists. And the other guy said, well, I don't believe. I know God doesn't exist. Well, all you're giving me is opinions. So you don't know what exist means until you define the word. And so we have to define the word exists so that we can use it for physics. Okay, and anyone who crosses the line, uses that word, has crossed the line into physics, and must use this definition. Otherwise, propose an alternative. Give me a definition that you can use consistently, rationally, scientifically. Okay? The task of a physicist is to unravel and discover what exists. Now, the visible, tangible part is, that the stuff is easy. We don't need a physicist to tell us that the table exists or that, you move the window in that direction or whatever. Those things you don't have to, we don't need a physicist. What do we need a physicist for? For the invisible, intangible stuff. The physicist has to tell the world what invisible, intangible stuff there is out there. And he doesn't have to tell us in the sense that you better believe, I know. No, that's not the way it works. The way it works is let us assume. Let us assume that light is mediated by a rope. Let us assume that magnetism is mediated, or the field in magnetic field is mediated by threads swinging around. So you make an assumption. They say the field, but the field is a concept, mathematical concept. You can't say the field did this, the field did that. You can't do that in physics. What you have to do is identify the object that is moving inside the region we call field. There's something in motion there, as Maxwell said, as Faraday said. There's something in motion. You have to identify the something, the invisible something that's moving in there. And you can see, with the underwater magnets that I showed, that the magnets underwater collect iron filings one at a time. Then when you do it in slow motion, time lapse, you see very slowly how each one of the iron filings is pulled by the so-called field. The field is the whole shebang. You got to tell me what's moving inside the field. That's the real field, the object that's moving in there. Okay, and there's something moving in there we have to identify. You can only identify it with an assumption. You cannot say, I believe. Now you say, let us assume, and then you explain your theory. Okay, hopefully there's something moving in there, because otherwise you're doing it with black magic. And so, the job of a physicist is to identify the invisible, intangible stuff. That's what they had to do all these 10,000 years, and they never did. What exists? Physical presence. That's the definition. That's a scientific definition of existence, of actuality, of reality, real. All these words are synonyms in physics. Physical presence. What is physical? Object, a thing. Okay. What is presence? Location. Okay. An object exists if it is it's an object. Can't be a concept. Concepts cannot exist in science. Okay, because you can't use that consistently if you're going to use the word. If you're going to use concepts, you can't say intelligence exists or love exists. Not in physics, not in science. You can do that in ordinary speech and poetry, whatever. Yeah, literature. But in physics, only objects can be said to exist. And what do we mean by that? That the object is itself? No. Object has location with respect to all other objects in the universe. And atom has location with respect to all other objects. If God wants to exist, it's very simple for him. First, he's got to be an object. Okay? God cannot be a concept. God cannot be love. God cannot be intelligent. God has to be an object. Has to be a human being, like individual or thingy. Maybe a flaming bush, no problem. We can handle all that. First, God has to be a thing, okay? That which has shape. And then God has to have location. In other words, God has to have a distance with respect to every atom in the universe. I should be able to point in a straight line of direction to God and say, that's God over there, okay? We have a straight line of direction connecting him to me. I don't care where he can hide in the 10th dimension. There should be a straight line of direction, God to me, okay? And only then can we say God exists. If I can't do that with God, God does not exist by definition, not because I believe or have stopped believing, but by definition. God has to have location if he wants to exist. And that's the synonym of reality.